Hi, and welcome to the fourth video in our file monitor series. So in the series so far, we've created a pretty much working script with a bunch of different functions that we can actually recall, and we can create a baseline, we can add file to a baseline, and we can also verify it. So we have tons of things that we've added into our script here, and we have two more features that we want to add before we actually go ahead and make the GUI version for this. So one of the things that we wanted to add was the ability to have an email sent out when a file changes. So email when file changes, and then a menu so we can go ahead and we can actually just navigate through our application or our script without having to just re-execute the script, change some things, and then re-execute the script again. So let's actually go ahead and let's work on the email first here and see how we can actually email when a file changes. So just minimize that here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the exact script here. We're going to be starting exactly where we left off on our third video here. So let me just make a new script here for the fourth video here. And what we're going to want to do, since we want to email when we are verifying the file if it has changed or not, we already know that our main function that we're going to have to modify is going to be this verify baseline function. So what we're going to want to do is put in another parameter here. So let's just add a comma in here, and this parameter though will not be mandatory. So we're just going to put parameter parentheses, and we are just going to put a $email to. All we want is just an email to, so we give it a email that we want to send it to. We're going to have our default account in there that's sending it from, so the person doesn't have to worry about putting in their email address, their password. It's just going to send it basically as if it was like a service email account. Now, to actually get this email working properly, what we need to do is actually use a PowerShell script that we've made on the channel before. I'll put the link to the video in the description down below as well. But basically what we've created is this function here called sendMailKitMessage. And this is just a script that really lets us send an email from PowerShell without using the sendMailMessage commandlet, which is actually deprecated, but actually using the MailKit. So what we're going to first do at the top of our script here, we're going to do an import module. And all I'm going to do is actually, I'm just going to copy the path to this file here, and that will let us use the send mail kit message. Then the other thing that we want to do, since we want to actually make this script secure, we don't want to put a password in plain text. I, of course, don't want to put my password on this video so you guys would have access to my email account. So the best way to actually create a file with the credentials, again, I have this in another video as well. We're going to be creating a XML file with our credential in it, and it's going to be a CLI XML file. So it's going to be actually locked to the user that creates that file and the computer that creates that file. So make sure if you want to run this script, maybe or give it to other people, you might want to just get them to generate a credential, or you might just prompt them for the email credential itself as well. That would be completely up to you. So let's go ahead, and for me, I'm going to go ahead and just create a temporary variable here called creds, and I'm going to make that equal to get credential. And all I'm going to do here is do a creds and then pipe that to export CLI XML, and I'm going to put a path here, and I'm going to want to output that directly to our email cred.xml. Let's go ahead and let's run this here. Now you're going to see it's going to prompt me for my credentials. So I'm going to go ahead and just put in my email in here. So that would be JackedProgrammer@outlook.com, and put in my password here. All right, and there we have it. So now we have our email cred XML. So we can actually go ahead and just remove these two lines here. And all I'm going to do now is put in a email credentials path variable. And we're going to go ahead and make that equal to our XML path. And then we're going to do an email credentials variable, and we're going to make that equal to import fly XML. And the path is going to be, of course, the email credentials path. I'm also going to want to create a email server variable, and that is going to be the email server of Outlook because that is the account that we're using here. So smtp-mail-outlook.com, and then an email port here. We are going to do that as 587. All right, so now that we have all of our email variables set here, all we need to do is come into the spot where we actually detect that if something has changed. So what we're going to put in here is we're going to do an if email2. So if the email2 variable exists, the parameter exists. So if we put in an email in our verify baseline commandlet, what we are going to do is we're going to do a send mailkit message. And we're going to send that to the email2 variable. And the from, we are going to send that from our email credentials.username. Our subject is going to be file monitor, file has changed. Our body, I'm not going to make this super complicated. I'm just going to copy this line right here, which just states that the file path hash is different. Something has changed. And then all we're going to need to put in here is the SMTP server. We're going to put our email server variable in here. For the port parameter, we're going to go ahead and put the email port. And then the credential, we are going to go ahead and we are going to put the email credentials, and that should actually work here. And we can actually test this out. So if we go ahead and let me just comment out the add file to baseline, and let me add the parameter here. We're just going to send that to JackedProgrammer@outlook.com. And let's go ahead and let's run these here. And there you go. It's actually sending off the email. So if we actually open up a web browser, I actually have my emails here. So we can actually see right here, we have the test1.txt hash is different. Something has changed. And we have the test3.text hash is different. Something has changed. So what we can actually do here is even change number 2. And if we go ahead and we run this once again, we are going to see that we actually get some more emails that will come in. Let me just delete these here. And there they are. There's the 3 emails that just came in. So we have test1.txt, test2.txt, and test3.txt. So we are actually receiving emails. And if we didn't want to receive emails, we can, of course, just run the verify baseline here, and that will actually run completely fine. And we just get the output here, which we can actually see all 3 files have actually changed. So everything is good there. So everything seems to be working nicely. Now, the only thing that we want to add now is a little menu, which will let us better use this script, because right now we have to constantly either use these different commandlets to be able to do something and then constantly execute the script. So what we can actually do here is create a little CLI or console application. So what we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to start off with a pretty much an almost infinite loop, but the loop will actually exit based on some keystroke that we put in. So what we're going to want to first do here is a do open and close curly bracket and then while. And we're going to do this while our entry is not. So entry is not in because we want to give multiple options to the user to quit. So, and we're going to put that in an array here. So as long as the user doesn't enter in Q or the word quit, we are actually going to be in this loop. Now, what I actually want to do is right before the loop, I'm just going to do a write output here. And we're just going to put in file monitor system. So this will just actually like kind of be a little title. It'll tell you that you're in the file monitor system. And we can even put version or version 1.0.1.00 to indicate that it is the first version here. Now, once we actually are in here, what we would want to do, of course, is get our entry. So if we do entry equals read host, and then we can go ahead and put in a prompt here. And we're going to say, please enter a, please enter a selection. And now we want to know what, of course, are our selections. So before we do the read host here, we're going to go ahead and do a bunch of write outputs. And this is going to be our different menu options here. So what we're going to say is, please select one of the following options or enter Q or quit to quit. All right, and we're just going to add another write output here. So what kind of options would we actually want to have in our application? So we want to definitely be able to set a baseline. So we want the user to be able to set what their baseline file is. So our first option here is going to be set baseline file. And then maybe what I'm going to do is just put a semicolon here and then just put current set baseline. And let's go ahead and let's put our baseline file path in here. And all I'm actually going to do is I want to start off the application with a blank file path. Let's just do that. And then our second option here, what we would like to do is add a file to the baseline because that's really our other main feature here. So we're going to add path to baseline. And let's do 3 here. What we would want to do is going to be the check files against baseline. And then, of course, what we would like to have here is a for. We would like to create a new baseline. All right, so now we have all of our options here. We can actually go ahead and just remove, or actually let's just comment out these lines because we can actually copy paste these when we need them later on. So everything should actually be working fine here. We should basically be stuck in infinite loop till we hit Q or type in the word quit here. So if we actually go ahead and we run this, we get please enter a selection. So if I just do 1, we get it again, 2, get it again, 3, get it again, 4, get it again. If I put in 5, it still gives us the options again. So we're going to want to make sure that we capture bad entries. But if we type in quit here, it does exit out of the application. So that actually does work correctly. And if we just type in Q, that also works. It does quit out nicely. All right, so once we have our entry here, what we're going to want is to actually inspect what the entry was to determine what we actually want to do. Now, the easiest way to do that in this case, since we only have one condition, is going to be a switch statement. So we're going to switch on our entry here and then do an open and closing curly bracket. And then what we want to do is we want to check for the different options here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a 1, open and closing curly bracket, 2, open and closing curly bracket, just make these all the same here, and just 3, 4, and then Q, and then quit, and then our default option. So let's do default here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Q, and then quit. So we have all of our options here. Now, the easiest ones to do are going to be Q and quit. We actually don't want to do anything in this case. For default, what I actually want to do is do a write output, and we just want to say invalid entry. So if we actually just go ahead and we run this now, we're going to see if we put in 6, we get invalid entry. Just bring this up a little bit. If I put in T, we get invalid entry here as well. We put in P, we get invalid entry, but as soon as I type in Q, we actually go ahead and we quit out. Now, the reason why we put Q and quit in here with nothing is you could actually put something in here saying, thanks for using the application, goodbye, or something. We don't want to really display anything to the user, so we're going to leave these blank here. So we have all of our pretty much what we want to do set up here. So for 1, we want to go ahead and set the baseline. So what we need to do here is, let's hit enter in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a baseline file path, and we're going to set that equal to a read-host. And we're going to put a prompt here, and we're going to say enter the baseline file path. All right. And then what we want to do, because we know that our file needs to be a CSV file for it to actually work properly, which we're going to have to make some changes to our code here because it's not going to be super friendly. We're going to see what's going to happen here. I just kind of thought of that now. So we want to make sure that it is a CSV file in order for us to work with it properly, and we want to make sure that the file actually exists. So let's go ahead and let's make sure that the file exists first here. So we're going to do an if test path, and we are going to test for the path of the baseline file path, and we're going to do an open and close curly bracket with an else statement. In the else, so if the baseline file path does not exist, we're going to go ahead and reset that back to empty. And we are going to go ahead and we are going to do a write output. And we're going to say invalid file path for baseline. All right. If the file does exist, what we actually want to do now is make sure that it is a CSV file. So what we're going to do is we're going to do another if statement. And we're just going to have an else right away. And if it is in the else, we already know what we want to do is we want to go ahead and set the baseline file path to empty, and then do a write output here. Invalid file needs to be a .csv file. All right, so to determine what kind of file it is, what we need to do is check the last 4 characters. We want to make sure that that file is a .csv file. So what we're going to do here is baseline file path .substring, and we want to check at the starting position of baseline file path .length -4. So that's going to cover the .csv, and we want to read in the 4 characters afterwards. All right, and we're going to have to add another set of parentheses. Yes, another, no, that should be good. So if that substring is equal to .csv, then we are good, and we don't have to do anything in this case. This will automatically take care of it for us, so we can actually go ahead and actually test this out right now to actually make sure that it works. So let's go ahead and let's run this code here. And it's asking us again for our choices. So let's go ahead and let's pick one. And it's telling us to enter the file path. So let's go ahead and let's copy this path of a CSV file and let's put in something that doesn't exist. So a baselines 2.csv, we get invalidated file path for baseline. If we actually copy one of our text files here, so let's go ahead and let's put in one again. And let's put in our text file. We get invalid file. It needs to be a CSV file. So we know that our number one does work. And if we actually go ahead, put one, and we copy the path of baselines1.csv, which exists and is a CSV file, we put that in here. Our current set baseline does show our baseline file that is set. So that actually works properly here. So that's perfect. So we already have kind of like some error checking kind of built into our menu here. So let's just reshrink this. So we have the set baseline file properly. So now our next one is adding a path to the baseline. So this we already know that our function add file to baseline does all of the error checking for us. So this will actually be very, very easy. All we need to do is create a variable called target file path and go ahead and make that equal to read host. And we're going to make that a prompt. And actually, I'm still in the script here. So if we do a read host with the prompt here, we're going to say enter the path of the file you want to monitor. And all we need to do is add file to baseline. And then the baseline file path, we're going to send in the baseline file path. And then the target file path, we're going to go ahead and send in the target file path. So that is actually all good. So now if we actually test this out here, let's go ahead and let's run this code. So once again, with our application, we always need to set the baseline first. So let's go ahead and let's set that to the baselines1. And now we can go ahead, we can add a path to the baseline. Let's go ahead, let's create a new file here called test4.txt. Just put that in this file here, this folder here. Put that as 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's go ahead and let's copy the path. Put that in here. There it is. And we have entries successfully added into the baseline. We go look in our baseline. We do see the test 4 up here. So that actually worked out great. So everything is working good so far for 1 and 2. And now our third option here is going to be check files against baseline. So this is where we actually have a few options. So for now, all we're going to do is just do a simple verify baseline. We're not going to do the email just yet. So just put in that verify baseline file path, and we're going to pass in our baseline file path variable. And now all we need to do is our fourth option, which is going to be a create new baseline. Now this is where we want to go ahead and create a new baseline. So we're going to have a variable here called new baseline file path. And we're going to have a read host here. Make sure that I actually quit out again. And let's do a read host. And we're going to do a prompt. And we are going to say enter path or new baseline file. And let's go ahead and let's do a create baseline file path. And we're going to do a new baseline file path. So if we have all that here, that should be working correctly here. So let's go ahead and let's run this once again. So let's go ahead and let's set our baseline. Let's pick a real CSV file here. And we have that. So now let's go ahead and let's check files against baseline. So we can see test 1 has changed, test 2 has changed, test 3 has changed, and test 4 is still the same. So that is working correctly here. And let's go ahead and let's try to create a new baseline. Now this is where we're going to encounter some issues here. So if I actually pick copy path here, so let's try to make a new baseline with the baselines2.txt. Because I don't know that we need a CSV file, it will actually create that file for us. And this is because in our create baseline, we actually did not put any validation checks to make sure that it was a CSV file. So now we actually have issues. It won't recreate a file that already exists. So if we do create a new baseline again, and we try to just recreate the baselines 1.csv, we will get that it already exists with this name. That is because we've handled that with the create baseline commandlet. So now what we actually need to do here is scroll up to our create baseline, and this will actually be something that we've actually already fixed in our application because we have the set. We purposely check if it is a CSV. But if someone did by chance use the commandlets directly right now and they put in a file that was a .txt file, we would actually encounter some issues because we have the import CSV. It should only support CSV files. So let's go ahead, let's just minimize these functions here and create baseline. What we actually need to do is add another check to make sure that the extension is properly set to a CSV file, which handy for us. We've already written that code here. So we can actually copy paste this into our create baseline here. So if the baseline is, we're going to put this to not equal CSV. And we are just going to go ahead and we're going to write out an error here. And the baseline file path needs to be a .csv file. And we can actually go ahead and copy paste this on every single one here before, like right after the first check to see if the file exists. We want to then make sure that the file is actually a CSV file. So once we actually have all that added in here, all we need to do now is come on and launch the script again. And just quit out here. Quit out here. And we just clear this. And we're just going to run the script again here. And let's go ahead and let's set the baseline to our file, which is a .csv. So let's just go here, copy path. That works fine. Let's try to create a new baseline. So the path for the new baseline, all I'm going to do here is copy paste this. Let's try to do a baselines3.txt. And we actually have now a error that pops up, which is just C scripts basic file monitor baselines3.txt needs to be .csv file. So that is actually perfect. So if we do 4 now, and we go ahead, we paste that in here, and we do a baselines.csv, so baselines2.csv, we actually go ahead and it actually creates that baseline for us. So we've added in some extra error checking in here to make sure that it is a CSV file. Now, what you guys might have noticed is this application is quite hard to read because it's always black on white here or gray on white. What I actually like to do here, instead of the return exception messages on all of these functions, what I would actually probably prefer to do here is just do a write error on these and then just copy paste all these write errors, and that will improve the error handling a little bit. We'll be able to see the errors a little bit better. So if we go ahead and we actually launch this and we go 4 here and we enter a new path, let's go ahead and let's create a baseline with the baselines 3.txt. We actually have a nice little error message here that pops up in red, but the rest of the menu is still a little hard to read. So what I actually like to do in this case is change all the write outputs in our menu to write hosts. And the reason why I do this is the write host will actually give us an option for foreground color, which can change the color of the text. So what I want to do is do all these write hosts. I actually even want to do the write hosts on the messages that we write out as invalid. So we can change the color of those and the invalid entry as well. And then what we want to do for the regular messages, we're just going to do the foreground of green. And I'm just going to actually copy paste this once again to all of these lines here. And then for the error messages, all we're going to do is change that from green to red. And we're going to do that for all of these. So now actually, if we go ahead and we run all this code here, we get this nice green for our menu. And we can go ahead, we can set the baseline file. Let's go ahead, let's set that to a txt file here. So we should get a nice little red error message here. So we can actually set to the proper baseline. So as you can see, it is quite a bit easier to read. If we put in an invalid entry, we get the invalid entry in red. And we can go ahead and we can quit out here. So this just makes it a little bit more user-friendly, of course. Obviously, the more friendly user version will be the GUI version that we are going to be creating in the next video. Now, that might be also a few videos in length, just because the amount of features we are going to be putting in, we might not be able to cover the entire thing in one video. So of course, the only thing missing from our application right now is that check files against baseline with email. So all I would do is, let's say I now want to add another feature here. I can go ahead and just copy paste this line below. Let's change this to 4 and this to 5. So check files against baseline with email. And then I come into my switch statement here. All we're going to do is copy paste this 3 down below as well. Change the 4 to a 5 because that is now a 5 option. And for 4, we're just going to add a variable here called email. And we're going to have a read host. And our prompt is going to be enter your email. And then in our verify baseline, we're going to do email to. And we are going to put email. Now, of course, there are a lot of things that you can add on to this script as well. You can validate to make sure that it is a properly formatted email. There are a bunch of different things that you can definitely add to this script. The amount of copy pasting that we did, you can also create functions to check the baseline file, make sure it's a CSV file, make sure it exists. Those are all extra functions that you can add into this script. You can definitely take this script a lot further. But let's go ahead and let's just run it and make sure that the email portion works. So let's go ahead and let's set our baseline here to 1. We're just going to copy the path here. And let's go ahead and let's check the files against the baseline with email. It's going to ask us for our email. So I'm just going to put my email in here. So JackedProgrammer.outlook@outlook.com. And it's going to go ahead and it's checking that now. And if we actually just go ahead and let's just delete these old emails here. There they are. There's the emails that came in here. So we have test I think that I might have actually deleted the one email here. So if we go to deleted items here, yes, so 626. So there we have all the 3 emails from 626 here. We have test 1, test 2, and test 3, which are the 3 files that come up as different here, as we can even see here. In between all the kind of garbage text here of the email, we do see that the hashes are changed and it sent the email accordingly. Let's go ahead and we could just quit out of the application. So that is really the basic file monitor. Now, of course, like I said, there are a bunch more things that you can add. If you guys would like to see me add more to this console version, please let me know in the comment section down below. But in the next couple videos, we are actually going to be building a full GUI, which will let the user use the file explorer to go ahead and pick the different baselines. We're going to be able to also configure the email setup there, maybe let the user type in their own email, type in their email password, and then it could use that and send the email that way. Maybe give some users a few different SMTP options. For me, I'll just probably put the Outlook option, but you can definitely configure multiple different server options. So if the user doesn't know the SMTP server or the port, they can pick something out of that list. So all those are definitely features that we can work on. In the first video, we're just gonna kind of do the same thing that we did for these videos. We're gonna go over all the different things that we want in our GUI. We're gonna design our first version of our GUI in Visual Studio like we used to do for the GUI series. And then we're gonna go ahead and start with the coding afterwards. If you guys have any comments or questions about this video, or if you guys have any comments or questions or things that you guys would like to see in a future video, please let me know in the comment section. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and also don't forget to hit that notification bell to be notified when that next video comes out. I will see you guys on the next video.